Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today we have to talk about the possibility of yet another Switch 1-focused Nintendo Direct airing in February. Let's talk about it. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the channel. I hope your Friday morning is treating you well. So, it's been a weird week, right? Like, we had the investor meeting, we had the confirmation of backwards compatibility for the Switch 2 from Nintendo themselves, from Furukawa. We got one of those infamous Furukawa here, tweets on Twitter. And now we have a rumor about a Nintendo Direct airing in February, focused on Switch 1 games, and that on the surface doesn't really surprise me. However, as we try to unravel and figure out when the Switch 2 will be announced and released, it does kind of make me wonder, what is going on? You all know me. I am in it for the games. I want to see exciting games. If Nintendo has another Switch 1 only Direct with a ton of banger announcements, then I'm fine with that. If that means the Switch 2 doesn't get announced for a few more months, whatever. I don't really care. I just want to see exciting games. And seemingly the Switch 1 does have some exciting stuff, even if it is going to be a lot more ports. Like Xenoblade X is a game that I've been waiting to come to Switch, even though, I'm a huge Xenoblade fan. I love 1, 2, and 3 and all the DLC and everything. It's my favorite Nintendo franchise, I would say. I've been waiting because I knew eventually Xenoblade X would come over. So if we're still getting stuff on that caliber even, I'm okay with waiting a little bit longer for the Switch 2, but we're hearing rumors that there will be a February Nintendo Direct that will be focused on Switch 1. So this is coming from our favorite PH Brazil over on Famiboards. He said here on a post on Tuesday, he said, there will be a February, from my understanding, a Switch 1 focused Nintendo Direct. Might end up being just another partner showcase with a single or a couple of first-party games shown, if even that though. The Xenoblade Chronicles X announcement makes me think that Nintendo doesn't care too much about showcasing these late ports in Direct presentations. Now, for those that are just joining us on the hype train here, Brazil is I would say, overall pretty reliable leaker when it comes to Nintendo Direct presentation dates. This is the guy that back in February said that the Switch 2 was not coming out until 2025, first guy to report on it, and that obviously was true. In my opinion, that was a pretty obvious thing, but most people would disagree. He was going against the grain of most major outlets, right? Because back then, everybody was reporting, hey, Switch 2 is getting announced in, February or March. I'm releasing in September or November. So he went against the grain there and was right. Then he said there was going to be an April Nintendo Direct, which obviously didn't happen. But then, most recently, to his credit, he did say that Nintendo was moving up their presentations from the usual September time slots to August. And that is something that I don't think you really predict, because it was very abnormal and something we have never seen them do. They've, as far as, back to like 2015, I don't think, missed a September Nintendo Direct. So for them to put the partner showcase, put the museum direct, put the indie world even all in August was very weird, and he did say that before that, revelation happened. So he has some sources, it seems. He does seem to be right about some things. He also thought the Switch 2 was going to be announced by now. That was speculation on his part. It was not, leaks or anything, but it was informed speculation. So basically, I say all this, if you're new here, just to kind of catch you up on the authenticity of Brazil's rumors and reports. I would say like 50-50, but being right about the August thing, in my opinion, that adds a lot of credibility, in my opinion. It makes me want to take this guy a little bit more seriously when he says stuff like this. So if he's saying there is a February, from his understanding, a Switch 1 focused Nintendo Directs, you gotta pay attention to that. And it, that doesn't sound that shocking, right? Nintendo does that every year. There's been a February Switch 1 focus Direct every year since 2019, I believe, except for in 2020 we had a Direct Mini in March, right? But obviously there were different things going on in the world at that point. So a February Switch 1 focus Direct is not surprising, but also it is surprising if you're expecting a Switch 2 reveal before then, which I'm sure most people watching this video were expecting the Switch 2 to be announced in either September or October. I know there's a lot of people that have moved to thinking it'll be announced in January. Furukawa said in a Q&A, I believe, over this past week that they will announce it at a later date, but their plans have not changed. So we know we're getting it in the next 4 months or so. It's just a matter of when and kind of pinning down when that will be. But I feel like a Switch 1 Direct in February, to me, I'm not sure if I'm sold on this idea, but hear me out here. To me, that kind of indicates that we're not getting a Switch 2 reveal until after that. They could announce the Switch 2 in January and have a Switch 1 Focus Direct in February. Maybe that Switch 1 reveal is the big event, right? Maybe it is releasing in April or May still, and we get, instead of having little tease, we just get the big hour-long meaty Nintendo Direct that we're, dreaming of, with 3D Mario and Animal Crossing and all these different things, right? Maybe we skip the 3-minute teaser and get the big blowout event in January. And then as maybe sort of a consolation prize for the nearing, 150 million Switch users, they do a Switch 1 Direct in February. And then, yeah, they can also say in that Direct, listen, guys, all of these games we're about to show you will be playable on Switch 2. That's really the only route forward I see that kind of makes sense if we are to expect a Switch 2 reveal before February. If this is true, of course, this could be bogus, but I lean towards it being real. I do think a February Switch 1 focused Nintendo Direct could make sense, especially given what we kind of know is coming, or at least can easily predict, I would say, for the Switch as it stands, not counting Switch 2 or anything. We need to see Metroid Prime 4. I think we will probably see it this year, honestly, at the Game Awards, and that'll be a whole nother video, but we need to see Prime 4. We need a release date for that. I imagine that game is releasing probably by July at the latest. Xenoblade Chronicles X was announced on Twitter, but they have to show us what that new major story expansion is going to be for this game, and that'll be primed and ready for a Nintendo Direct. There have been so many rumors of a Fire Emblem remake. There has been so much talk of a new Kirby game or a Kirby remaster coming. There's plenty of juice left in the tank for Switch 1, in my opinion, for a February Direct to make sense. I mean, I talk about Hyrule Warriors even. I think Hyrule Warriors could still be like a Switch 1 game. Camelot has not released a game in 4 years since Super Rush, so Camelot could be ready with some sort of Mario Sports Superstars for Switch 1. This won't take away from the Switch 2 lineup. If the Switch 2 releases in the spring or summer, they'll still need to support the Switch 1 with games and lower stake stuff like a Mario Sports compilation or a Kirby remaster, a Fire Emblem remake. That is the perfect type of support to give this console in its final months, final years, while also saying, hey, this is all backwards compatible, which I think we need to look into what Furukawa said on Twitter, and it really makes me think that this is going to be something they really advertise. Like, backwards compatibility is something that we kind of take, for granted, I think, a lot of the time. And, looking at the comments on my video where I talked about the announcement from Nintendo, a lot of people just expected it, right? And I did too. I think we all expected the Switch 2 to be backwards compatible. It wouldn't have made sense for it not to be, given what they had said in the past about Nintendo account services and all that. But I think that Nintendo is actually going to really use this as a marketing beat for the Switch 2. Because we haven't even seen the console. We don't know what it's called. We don't know when it's being announced or revealed. But they're already telling us very early on, this is backwards compatible. So I think when we see a February Switch 1 Focus Direct, they say at the start, like, hey, if you missed it, we did a big presentation a few weeks ago, or we're going to announce it in a couple weeks, whatever the case is. All of these games are going to be backwards compatible. We're going to see them really hammering this hard, saying, hey, these games will be playable in Switch 2. Maybe they will have enhancements. Maybe they won't have enhancements. But either way, given that they tweeted it out, like, that's so un-Nintendo to say a major feature of your console, to just tweet it out. That tells me it's going to be something they really hone in on and focus on as they kind of try and sell this console to the average Switch consumer that's not watching Botox Games and Andres Restarts videos, right? Now, there is something else that Brazil said in that post I showed that I want to unpack a little bit more in depth here, and that is that he says it might end up being just another partner showcase with a single or couple of first-party games shown. So we've seen partner showcases that have no first-party announcements at all. We've mostly seen that, in fact. However, there have been times where, we see Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity pop up in a partner showcase. And most notably, I would say this is the most significant thing because it was a new announcement. We saw Endless Ocean Luminous announced in the partner showcase this February. So, is it possible that we get a partner showcase? And is it possible that said partner showcase could have first-party announcements? Yes. Pretty much, the simple answer is yes. I don't know if it would be a partner showcase, though, and here's why. This is purely vibes based, but I really don't know what could really be announced for the current Switch as soon as February. I'm not saying there's not plenty of games coming from third parties that could be announced in a Nintendo Direct. I just feel like February is a little soon after we just had the August one, because at that point, a lot of those games still won't even be released. Suikoden won't be out. Atelier Yumiya won't be out. Tales of Grace's F will have just come out. Most of the games that were announced in the August partner showcase were early 2025 games. So to do another one so soon, okay, what, is Bandai Namco going to announce another Tales remaster? I guess that's possible. Is Capcom going to announce another fighting collection? They already have one slated for 2025. I guess they can show that and put a date on it. I just wonder, how much third-party support is there really left for them to do another full partner showcase on the Nintendo Switch that'll get people excited. I guess they could do another wave of Yakuza announcements. I guess it could basically be August partner showcase Folie à Deux, right? Like it could be part 2 of this thing. And I guess that'd be fine, right? More JRPG remasters, more late ports from Sega and Capcom and that kind of thing. I feel like given where we are with the Switch, you know, when we got a partner showcase in August, it was different because we knew Echoes of Wisdom and Brothership and Mario Party and all these things were coming out. Now we don't have that. Now we have, well, at that point will be literally just Xenoblade, which is dated, and then assuming there's no date announced before then, Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends EA for the current Switch. So I feel like doing another partner showcase would just be really bad. That just feels really tone deaf unless they announce more first-party Switch support before then, but I mean, they could, right? Like, I mean, we saw Xenoblade announced on Twitter, so anything's a go, I guess, at this point. But I feel like if we're getting a February Switch 1-focused presentation, it almost has to be a regular Direct. Maybe they'll call it a Direct Mini or something, but I do think it would have at least a couple first-party things. Maybe that's where you get a Warriors game announced. I would hope for Xenoblade Warriors, but they probably wanted to announce that so close to Xenoblade Chronicles X releasing. Third-party partners, I mean, you could announce like Live Alive 2, that's rumored to be coming. You could announce that in a partner showcase as a Switch exclusive or something if Nintendo's going to take up the marketing rights for that game again like they did with the first one. Or whatever the Bravely team is working on. I mean, there is still stuff there that could make sense in a partner showcase that is Nintendo published that would not feel like, you know, hot air, right? Like, it would feel like some substantial announcements. Not saying, like, Tales of Grace's F and Atelier games are, like, nothing. I'm excited for those games. And Rune Factory Guardians of Ozma was announced in the partner showcase. But if there's no Nintendo first-party games slated past Xenoblade at that point with a date, you can't do a partner showcase. You have to announce something, even if it's more remakes and remasters, even if it's just Planet Robobot for May. Like, you have to announce at least something on that caliber come February. You cannot just do a partner showcase. But maybe they will. You know, I really, it's impossible to predict Nintendo, man. I feel like this year, especially, like, you know, throughout the Switch generation, even back on, like, the Wii U and 3DS, it felt predictable, man. But this year, it just feels like they're just playing their own game, man. I know people always say that, but this, like, the past 2 months especially, it's just been, like, complete 180 from what we're used to seeing from them, right? I mean, we got, you know, the nothing in September, which is totally unusual. Then we had a Larmo announced on Twitter, which I guess is actually pretty par for the course. Then we had this play test, which is totally unusual for them. They're in a weird spot right now where they're doing weird things, and I'm sure hindsight will tell us why they did the entire rollout of the Switch 2 this way and the marketing for the final Switch 1 games. I'm sure that will all become clear as we get closer. But as it stands right now, it does feel very weird. Even the way that Furukawa said it to investors after they announced backwards compatibility, they were like, listen, we're gonna, you know, we're sticking to the March 31st thing. It's going to be announced at a later date. We're not announcing it today, but it'll be announced at a later date. It's just like, dude, it's getting announced in 4 months. Why can't you not just say? Because they even said in the Q&A that they don't think that the Switch 2 being announced would hurt Switch 1 sales, basically deconfirming the whole holiday sales thing that so many people comment on. Furukawa literally said, I'll pull up the quote here. He said, quote, I can't say it doesn't exist at all, but the Switch is already in its 8th year since launch. I don't think the presence or absence of a successor will have much impact on customers who are purchasing it at this time, which is what I have been saying for months, and people keep commenting like, oh, they won't announce the Switch 2 because of that. They didn't announce it, so I'll take the L, but that's not the reason. They didn't not announce it because they're worried about the Switch selling worse because a Switch 2 was announced. That's not why they weren't announcing it. They obviously just have other plans. But back to the greater topic at hand here, the idea of there being a Switch 1 focused Direct in February. You know, on the surface, it doesn't really make sense if we are to believe the Switch 2 is getting announced in January. I know a lot of people don't believe that. A lot of people have just, you know, ship has sailed. We're talking March 31st now, final day possible. I don't know. I mean, it could make sense that they announce it in January and then we still get a Switch 1 focus presentation. That's when they say, like, hey, all these games are backwards compatible. Or maybe we don't get it until March. And either way, a February Direct could work. And ultimately, I do think there's enough juice left in the tank for there to be another Switch 1 general Nintendo Direct where they announce a couple new games, Fire Emblem Remake, Kirby, a Mario Sports thing. Like, there's still a lot of smaller things that could make sense for the Switch 1 as it enters its final year, probably like full year as like the main console. You know, if the Switch 2 doesn't come out until late next year, then yeah, this will be the final major year for the Switch 1, even if it is a lot of smaller support. This is something that I won't have, another opportunity to talk about because it is so small, but people noticed in their kind of investor presentation slides, they had this image where they were talking about how the Switch has kind of been a combination of all of the development efforts of the consoles and the handhelds of a past, and they had this nice little image here going over all of the first-party physical releases that Nintendo has done over the course of the generation, separated by year. And I mean, off topic, but wow. What an insane lineup. I mean, this doesn't even have everything on it. We're missing a lot of stuff that they did publish. I mean, looking at like 2018, that doesn't have, I don't know, like World Ends With You, for example. So there's a lot more they published that actually isn't in this image, but people noticed something very interesting about 2021. So all of these box arts are ESRB releases, which is I find a little odd for a Nintendo investor thing. There are a couple exceptions to that, like Brain Training from 2019 that has the PEGI rating, and Buddy Mission Bond, of course, was only ever released in Japan. But there's a game that has an ESRB case that never had a release, and that is a Famicom Detective Club, the two-case bundle that they did for the remakes of the first two games. That got a physical release in Japan, but it never got a physical release in Europe or America. But in this image, there is an ESRB copy of that game here. So if we're getting like a February Switch 1 Focus Direct, and we're getting more support throughout 2025 and even into 2026, I don't know if this chart actually indicates anything. I don't know if this means we're getting a physical release of that game years later, but I mean, that'd be really cool, and it would just be another thing for them to kind of just put out for Switch 1 owners, kind of just a nice gesture, being like, hey, we know you guys liked Emio a lot, sales maybe exceeded their expectations a little bit given the, scope of that game. Here is a physical version of the remakes of the first two games. That'd be very cool. It'd be a nice kind of small thing. We saw them do that with Bayonetta 1, actually, back in 2022, just a few weeks before Bayonetta 3 released. They went back and did a physical version of Bayonetta 1, even though that game had been on Switch for years. So seeing this image does give me hope that we might see Famicom Detective Club 1 and 2 get a physical here in America and in Europe, and that could be, it's not like a big deal or anything, right? Most people watching this video probably won't care, but for a lot of Switch owners, they don't want to pay $50 for a digital-only game. It never goes on sale in the eShop. That'd be a very easy, like, hey, this is just an extra release. This is our February game, I guess, and they're putting out like a physical version of a Famicom Detective Club. That'd be very cool. I'm not sure if this chart actually indicates that, but I do think there's a lot of little things they can do throughout 2025 to keep the hype going, and that is just one like small thing they could announce in like a February Direct or something. But either way, I would love to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of the possibility of a Switch 1 focused Nintendo Direct in February? Do you think it would be a general with major first-party announcements, or do you think it would be a partner showcase like we saw in August, like we saw in February of this year, and mostly focus on the third-party side of things? I think it'll be a general, though. That's where I'm leaning. Unless they announce something for like April or May at the Game Awards or on Twitter in the next like 2 months, I think a general showcase makes a lot more sense. But that is going to do it for today. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch content, news, coverage, discussion, topics, theories, all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames, and check out my other Nintendo collecting channel at It's Amiibo. That'll be linked down below. And until next time, folks, peace.